Thanks so much. I really uh, appreciate it. Can you see my screen? So I want to talk about transformation through worker co-ops, and I will talk a little fast. I am a New Yorker, um, and we only have 5 minutes. So I also want to make sure we acknowledge the stewards of the land, original stewards. I acknowledge our ancestors, Mother Earth. Thanks to the organizers. So human beings in every era of history, on every continent, practice solidarity, economics, mutual aid, and economic cooperation. These are strategies and practices older than capitalism that enable people to work together to survive and to thrive. And I contend that human beings' first economic system was cooperative economics, a cooperative system. And so I try to remind people, right, that it's in our DNA, it's part of being human, and that capitalism is actually more alien. And if we think about that, we can help. For Black and Brown people in the USA, cooperative economic organizing has been a means of collective survival and asserting and affirming our humanity, especially in economics. Black Americans, for example, have established cooperative enterprises in order to sustain their communities, feed their families, own land, control their work lives, and share what they've created, all in the face of racial economic exploitation and exclusion. In my book, Collective Courage, I delve deeply into these histories, and I've documented dozens of examples of Black co-ops showing survival, resistance, prosperity, etc., through economic cooperation. I want to focus the rest of my minutes on two important benefits of worker cooperatives, which is a really underutilized economic structure and practice. So, the first takeaway I hope you get is how worker co-ops achieve and transcend economic goals. They thus have potential to transform agricultural, manufacturing, and unionized industries, as well as service industries. And so it's a model that we should understand better and use more. And then the second piece, which is actually I've become quite passionate about, is the ways that worker co-ops transform work through self-management and economic democracy. And I'll give you one specific example of how worker owners develop social capital and leadership capacity and achieve psychosocial humanist development through their ownership of a business with other people. So let me quickly get to that. Um, this was a poster about what co-ops achieve, but I'm going to talk to you specifically about what worker co-ops achieve. Case studies, interviews, and surveys find that there are many benefits: increased productivity, better working conditions, better pay with benefits, more control over work and the work rules, more job ladder mobility, asset building. We have less employment turnover. Worker co-ops increase, as I said, social capital and civic engagement. So another way to do what we just heard about. They develop multiple types of leadership, which hopefully one of my examples will show you that. They help to stabilize communities, recirculate resources multiple times in the same community. There's less coercion, more self-management, communication, and teamwork. That results in productivity improvements. Studies also find higher levels of training in worker cooperatives, and also worker cooperatives are often started in order to meet and address community needs like elder care, child care, healthy food, green industries, and or to protect jobs. I came to better understand solidarity economies and cooperative economics as humanist economics when I was interviewing formerly incarcerated men about their experiences as co-op owners while in prison, operating what we call incarcerated worker co-ops. And these interviews I did were in Puerto Rico with members of Cooperative Aragos, Cooperativa de Servicio Aragos. Before the COVID pandemic, there were actually 5 incarcerated worker co-ops in various prisons in Puerto Rico.
30 seconds.
Incarcerated people themselves, 30 seconds? Oh, God. Okay. Somehow I had timed this to 5 minutes. But anyway, let me finish about
You're good. You're good, Jeff.
Cooperative Aragos, and then I'll go, and then I'll stop. I had one other example I won't give. So they demanded co-op education because they wanted to start a co-op business with selling their art. They were able to do that, change the law so that incarcerated people were allowed to be worker co-op members. Um, and then they went on and trained other people to do solar panel technology, a cafe, and the women's prison had a sewing prison. And the men from this co-op trained the other people. They have very low recidivism rates, and they talked very much about how the co-op transformed their lives. This is one of the quotes from one of the guys I interviewed. And I just want to finish by saying, right, the transformation, the spiritual transformation turned out to be more important when they in my interviews than the economic benefits. And so they felt like being able to own and control their own business while in prison just changed their whole attitude, their whole behavior, in addition to giving them uh, better, better income than slave labor they were doing in prison. And so it's not surprising that a study in Italy found that cities with the most worker co-ops had the highest measures of economic well-being, health, general satisfaction, and political efficacy.